pretty long, ain't it? And that's when he came with them snaps. And he had them finger snaps way before Laffy Taffy. And he had this odd Thelonious Monk type of way with his snaps. And he was like that with samples too. Like, they'd be on, but off, but on. if that makes any sense. They really relied upon independent syncopation.
Tiger style.
Tiger style.
And it was just other things that showed the brilliance of the RZA as a producer. There was Can It Be That It Was All So Simple. And you had Ray and Ghost as this tit for tat, back and forth, almost like Run DMC-ish type of vibe, or EPMD, just like the duo. When Can It Be That It All So Simple came out and you heard those two on a record, you could tell that it worked. Those two guys really work when you put them on a track together. And I think that's part of what spurred the Cuban Links, because they had to notice the chemistry. But Can It Be It's All So Simple? Can It Be It's All So Simple was laid back. It was kind of in a reminiscent tone about the old days, kind of thinking that things were tough and confusing, but now things are really confusing, and things back then were really so simple.
Hey, you know, everybody's talking about the good old days, right?
Yeah.
Everybody, the good old days, the good old days.
Good old days.
Well, let's talk about the good old days.
Let's talk about them shits now. Hold up, baby.
Me personally, I feel like that right now. Beautiful tune, you know, great Gladys Knight sample in there. And again, it's classic hip hop. It's so classic. And then they also had Tears, which I only recently figured out there was a video. But Tears was Ghostface especially going for broke. And we were really seeing Ghostface as this passionate, literate, just storyteller. And he's laying out this story of you know, messing with these chicks and getting caught up with the HIV and all, and being careful.
Yeah,
you know?
Mo said here go first. I said I'll take next. Here, take this raincoat and practice safe sex. He seemed to ignore. I said be for real. She's not even worth it to go raw deal. A man's gonna do what a man's gonna do. He got butt naked and stuck to power you.
After the laughter, here comes the tears. And as you see me going through all these songs, they're more than just guys rhyming on records. There's concepts that go around all of these songs. It's just not words on paper and a bunch of braggadocio. These are other things that make this album so important. For a second, I want to take an aside and talk about the style game that these guys put out. These guys, first of all, had a record deal that was unprecedented to this day. They didn't just get a group record deal. They got a record deal, and then they got a deal for every artist in the clan. So that we don't just eat as a group, we eat individually, and we eat off of doing cameos on each other's stuff. And we eat off of producing each other's stuff, keeping it in the family. There was also like RZA and Meth. No matter what anybody tell you, these cats was rocking grills way before the 2000s. Okay? These dudes had chip rock rings. You know what I'm saying? I've shooken the RZA's hands. I've seen these things. They're massive. You know what I'm saying? He had these spiral rings that like literally were like having on brass knuckles or something like that. They just had style. You know, Ray and Ghost will fly with that Tommy Hill and that Nautica stuff. You know, real early MPVs and Lexuses. You know, Meth had everybody trying to get Phillies. But, you know, back then, had everybody blowing out of a Philly. You know, they just did so much, and then on top of bringing back all of this old kung fu flick stuff and making it relevant to the times that we were in. These are all things that make this project so dope. And then we gotta go through each of these guys, just one by one. So who do we have? The RZA, the Jizza, the Old Dirty Bastard, Inspector Deck, Raekwon the Chef, U-God, Ghostface Killer, Master Killer, and the Method Man, and sometimes Capadonna. Ghostface gets to open up the album, and now seeing his longevity with all of this and his consistency, I'm so happy and pleased that he opened up this album, because he set himself up to win.
Ghostface, catch the blast of a hype verse. My clock burst, leaving a hearse, I did worse.
Ghost is that cat who just is a fly storyteller, and he's passionate, and he's highly descriptive about everything that he says, and it's so vivid. There's Raekwon. Raekwon's just on that street shit. He's just on that fucking get it cooking. You know what I'm saying? Get that shit chefed up.
Ignorant and mad young, wanted to be the one till I got loud, felt one. Yeah, my pops was a fiend since 16, shooting that's that shit in his bloodstream.
Method Man, we already explained. He's just got everything. He's a great package, man, and he's a great person to represent the whole. Old Dirty Bastard, no father to his style, unorthodox, rhymed any way he wanted to, and made you love his dirtiness. Made you love how dirty he was. That's a beautiful thing.
Here I go, deep tight flow. Jack you stole can never get this. No, I'm Terry Bomb and shit. Boom, that's warming up a little bit.
You got the Jizza, the genius. Jizza's just straight line for line rhymer. He is a line for line bar smith. He's a genius with that. You don't have to get all super complex. Just lay it out.
Now it's all over. Niggas seeing pink hearts, yellow moons, orange stars, and green clovers.
U-God. A lot of cats front on U-God, but one thing I gotta say is U-God got a magical voice. When he gets on, you know it's him.
Raw, I'ma give it to you with no trivia. Roll like cocaine straight from Bolivia. My hip hop will rock and shock the nation like the Emancipation Proclamation.
Capadonna came a little later, but he was actually a dude that the whole clan looked up to. He was out there in Shaolin holding it down before there was a Wu-Tang clan, and then they incorporated him. And he was another dude who was really kind of like Ray and Ghost, actually was really fly, but he still had his own way of coming across with his words. Inspector Deck is another dude who stand up as hell on the mic. He's New York ramen, essentially. Inspector Deck is New York.
You got sneak up kids, corrupt cops, and crack rocks and stray shots. All in a block that stays hot. Leave it up to me while I be living proof to kick the truth to the young black youth.
Master Killer. Master Killer is so subtle sometimes. He's the guy who, out of all these animated cats, his flow wasn't that animated. So it kind of made you notice him because of the calmness of how he'd come with it. Maybe that's why he's a master killer. He's like a silent assassin. And then, of course, the RZA. The RZA, man, like, he's a total package. He was Kanye West before Kanye West. He was the rapper, producer, the do-it-all guy. And he was able to produce several albums for the Clan and then get into movies and doing all types of larger projects. And it's a beautiful thing, as well as putting the whole Clan together as a whole. So, yeah, you got all these guys, and they're all competing on the same records. You got one album with 10 people on it. Almost every song on that album was a single. which tells you the quality of products they were putting out. And even the few songs that weren't released were still played pretty much as much as the singles were. So that tells you the caliber of work that they were doing. And also to be able to have all of those heads and egos on one project and control it. And to control it is a gift of production. So there's just so much that could be said about Enter the Wu-Tang. And I had to literally go back and re-listen to this thing a few more times. And every time I listen to it to this day, it sounds gorgeously dark, gorgeously gutter, gorgeously underground, proudly basement. You know what I'm saying? But Wu-Tang Clan, and this album especially, you know, to cap off the golden era, was, you know, what more is there to say?